Hello, Franz here, Clay Manufacturing. I've been taking a little break from doing free curriculum stuff, but I want to kind of put a video out there of the minimum tools required for operating a Haas mini mill, kind of what I use every single time I'm working on my Haas mini mill. And I don't have an endless budget, so keep that in mind. And I've been kind of not making videos because I've got carried away making my own little kind of like, these are little knives. This is op one side, and I've been making fixturing and stuff, had a lot of fun with that. This is a stainless steel, and anyways, that's kind of what I've been doing. I'll get back into the curriculum stuff, but I thought it'd be cool to make a video of the common tools that I prefer to use on the Haas mini mill. I'm going to start off with tool holders. ER16 tool holder. I love it a lot. I bought a bunch of in-mill holders. Not a bunch. I bought some in-mill holders, and I got a lot that were kind of too big for me. They're half-inch, so I'm kind of limited with those with just using half-inch tools. So I've been buying a lot more ER16 collet tool holders. So this is the nut that goes on there, and you can't have enough collets. So I like them a lot because they're so universal. I can't just have one tool holder dedicated to a specific tool. So I have, like, I don't know, probably 12 tool holders, and I'm taking those things in and out all day long, just swapping tools. And I've been switching so much because I'm going back and forth between aluminum tooling and steel tooling. So that's why I've been switching so much lately. And these collets, they're about 10 to 15 bucks a pop. And you'll want to get collets that are, so another thing that I've been doing is buying a lot more collets of your common sizes. So like your 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 3/8. I believe the ER16 system, at least the ones I use, they don't go up to a 1/2 inch. It's like 430 something thou diameter, as big as they go. But the ER16 have been great. I would love to purchase a bunch more and a bunch more ER collets. So you can never have enough tool holders or collets. And then this kind of goes without saying, but a good vise. Your foundation machining is built off of work holding, and if you're doing a lot of traditional stuff, your Kurt vise can do a lot. And in fact, with my little side project, I'm just getting like 2x1 aluminum as a fixture, and I'm just clamping it in my vise. So a good vise it's awesome. That's not a waste of money going like splurging a little bit on a vise. And then parallels, having a nice parallel set. So this is a common parallel set. They go in 1/8 inch of height increments, and these are 1/8 inch thick. So here's some parallels I have. This one, not on this machine, but it's been nicked on there, and you can't go wrong with a good set of parallels and these are 1/8 of an inch. I will say sometimes it would be a bit more beneficial to have skinnier parallels because there are times where I like pull the parallel out from under the part or where a hole is going to be, so I don't actually drill into the parallel. So that's something to consider. It doesn't happen all the time, but 1/8 of an inch wide parallels are real common, and you can't go wrong with a set of parallels. Calipers, I have my drawer right here. You know, this kind of goes without saying, but having a good set of calipers is super beneficial. That's not a waste of money. I have Michitoyo. These are coolant proof. And then dial. I prefer typically on a mill digital calipers. If you're on a lathe, oftentimes I'll prefer dial calipers just because it's easier to see that needle moving than looking at numbers. But for most stuff on a mill, I prefer the dial calipers. And what's one thing you'll note, like the dials, you're not going to run out of batteries. When it's like it counts and you need your calipers to work, your batteries are dead. So I say have both. Have digital and dial calipers as a backup, or even a primary on lathe. That's what I do. 1, 2, 3 blocks. I use these quite often in fixturing and setting up my tools, so you can't go wrong getting 1, 2, 3 blocks. And if I say you can't go wrong one more time, I'm going to just have to smash my head or something. I know I keep saying it. But 1, 2, 3 blocks, very handy. They rust real easy, so take care of them. Make sure they're nice and dry when you're done, and put some sort of rust inhibitor on it. Next one up, dead blow. I use this all the time. Pretty much anytime I'm trying to do something precise, I just give it a nice little tap, make sure it's seated. Got this at Harbor Freight. It's not expensive. It's got to be under 10 bucks. I bet you in the $5 range. And a dead blow is different from a mallet. Now a mallet will go to bounce off the part, and you might double tap it or do something weird. The dead blow kind of just, it's dead in the blow, I guess. It says it in the name that when you hit it, it just kind of sits and it doesn't try to bounce. So dead blow is good to have. Files. You cannot have enough files. I usually have a nice set of fine files, and you're always checking those burrs before you load them into the machine and make sure there's nothing lifting it weird off the parallel. So this is kind of like my go-to drawer right here. So I have a file. This is a more coarse one for aluminum because they're really trying to hog material quick. And I have some, I've pulled these out recently, just some finer files. And I actually have an entire drawer just dedicated to files. So I really recommend files. Another thing I recommend, of course, they're by the camera, are Sharpies. I'm using Sharpies all the time, marking material, cutting material, well, marking it for cutting it, even labeling, is this number 2 in the process or whatever. Can't go wrong with Sharpies. Oh, I said it again. Darn it. And then AB Tools, shout out to AB Tools. They make custom tooling here in Lincoln. No, that's not a paid sponsor, but really cool group of people. And pins are really nice to have, and a notepad. You need to have a notepad. I'm always writing stuff on it. So I take notes when I'm changing tool numbers and whatnot, or when I'm prototyping stuff. And even now because I'm making several, this is my little kind of like knife I'm just messing around with, and I'm doing a ton of different changes to setup and tool paths and tool path and the tools in the tool path. So I'm trying to take notes on which version it is, what I did for my step overs, width of cut, diameter cutters, that kind of thing. I'm always writing stuff down, and I try to make sure to date it too, so I can kind of look back and be like, oh, was this a recent note or is this a old note? Let's see, calculator in my go-to drawer. I got this from my friend Matt a long time ago. Use it all the time. Yeah, you can use it on your phone. I just don't like getting my phone all gummy and gross all the time, so I prefer to have a kind of standalone calculator. And oftentimes I'm doing like Pandora or something on my phone, or just looking on Instagram doing weird stuff, so my phone might not be close to me, but I always have a calculator close to me. Let's see. Cat 40 tool holder stand. Oh, I'll show that when I grab my phone in a minute. You want to have something so you can actually hold these tools, assemble and disassemble them. So you can tighten the pull stud on it, and so you can tighten the ER nut, because the ER nut does take a lot of torque on there because you don't want those tools to slip. So I highly recommend like a tool holder stand. I think Haas, the one I got from Haas, was like $150. Anytime I change a tool, that's exactly what I'm using. I recommend that one. USB. Next up on my list is the 7/8 open-end wrench. I bought a whole set from Harbor Freight for really cheap, and it's nice to have one just out and on your machine, because this is for the bolts that hold down your vise like a traditional Kurt vise. So I use this bad boy all the time. I don't like running across my garage to find tools, so I like to have that right on the machine. And then next one, Allen keys. Having imperial and metric Allen keys to 3/8, those are the ones that hold the socket head screws that hold on the vise jaws, the jaw plates. So I'm using that all the time. It's nice to have both metric and imperial version, and you can get them. Oh, another thing, make sure you get the Allens that have the little ball on the end. I will not buy ones that just have a straight square end, because especially on vise jaws, a lot of times you're on an angle, and with the straight ones, they're just a pain in the butt. I recommend just throwing all those out. And then, so we did the Allen keys, chip containment. I just bought a cheap, well, actually it wasn't that cheap. It was a Rubbermaid plastic trash can that goes under my chip auger. I have it tucked away, and I pull it out when I turn my chip auger on. So that's, it's kind of a no-brainer, but I do have a nice one. That way it can hold the weight of the heavier chips. Rags. I buy these from Home Depot. I go through rags like crazy because I try to make sure everything's nice and clean. A lot of shops, they'll get like fabric rags and then get them washed. They'll have someone wash them and clean them for them. That's a cool option as well. For me, it's just more feasible to get the paper towels. And then I have videos showing using a Heimer and a zero setter, which is kind of an expensive option. Another option is just for doing an edge finder is your traditional wobbler. You spin these things 750 to don't go over 1500 RPM. And these are great edge finders. These things are way more accurate than you think they would be. You should be able to repeat within a thou with one of these edge finders. And you can use this on conductive and non-conductive materials, so that's pretty cool. I've never used this on this mini mill, but this is one where I believe the material has to be conductive, and when it touches the edge, it will light up. And the trick for these ones is you rotate the RPM, the spindle, like at 200 RPM. So that way, because the center of that is not super concentric, and it will kind of light on and off, and it's pretty good for locating your edge. I don't use this one, but it's a cheap alternative. And then, so that's for finding the edge of your work material. So for your X and Y, and for touching off your tools for Z, I already recommended a 1, 2, 3 block. But what I find when people use 1, 2, 3 blocks to touch off their tools, they're trying to ram this thing under their carbide tools, and they're just beating the crap out of their tooling. And they break the ends off of all the tooling, the chamfers. So I recommend using something smaller. You can get like the shank of a tool of a known value. You can measure it in micrometers. You can use a gauge pin. Round inspection equipment or end mills are typically better, because as soon as it slides under the tool, you know that's your value, and you can do your part zero set, or your tool offset measure, excuse me. And so gauge pin, broken tooling like end mill, you can use that shank. That's a real good method. You can also use a gauge block, which is okay, but gauge blocks are usually precision in one dimension, and the other dimension they're not precise. So like if you're using a 500 thou gauge block, the thickness of the block is actually 300, so you could accidentally flip-flop that value and enter in wrong numbers. So those are cheap, affordable ways to actually touch off your tooling. And then I believe I mentioned having your workstation near your machine is really great. And I have one of those Husky tables that go up and down, and that's kind of like my workstation. And so that way, when I'm on my computer, I swing the desk one way so I can see out my garage, because I don't like having my back to just not seeing what's coming. I don't know, just weird tendency. But I love being able to move my workstation all over the place. And then let's just talk about issues real quick with my machine. I'm going to check my phone, make sure it's recording. It is. So I only have about 158 M30 counters, so end of program. So that's complete programs. I have not had a single issue with the machine, the control, nothing weird. It's been great. I have no problems with it. I'll mention two little bugaboos. And it's really just one bugaboo, and the other is just probably because of temperature. But the auger, I paid for the auger, and it works okay. It doesn't move chips very well. I've bogged it a few times, and I don't load it up much. I probably try to run it. I try to run it really often, so that way it's not loading it up. If you have the fluffy chips, they're a lot harder on the machine than like your typical side milling chips, where they're the nice 6s and 9s, or the long strands. Those go pretty well, but the fluffy chips, it does not like those. It will bog it out pretty well. I don't like that, and I also don't like how you can't do your chip forward with a door open. I think that's silly. So that's kind of a minor problem. Is it worth the money? It depends on the kind of deal you can negotiate with your Haas salesman. I would recommend that high-speed machining over an auger if you're kind of going between the two. Because I've seen people, they just pull the whole auger tube off, and you have access to the tray right there, and that's another way to do it. And then just kind of one notable thing is I've been working, it's been a lot colder for us, cold, like in the 40s, and the spindle at like certain RPMs, it makes this weird sounding whine, and it's like intermittent. It's almost like it's too cold. And I'll run the warm-up cycle and all that. It's like a 20-minute warm-up cycle. And so that's just kind of one thing that I've noticed, and that I didn't notice it until it started getting cold. No chatter, nothing weird with cutting. I went online, and someone posted, it was like on Practical Machinist, they said they had a Haas, like a Selway technician come in, and they said, yeah, if we replaced every spindle that made noise, we'd be out of business. So what I gather is there's a lot of weird noises. It doesn't mean the machine's bad. And I don't think it's bad. Everything's been fine. I just kind of chalk it up to it being cold. If I start seeing weird tool chatter or weird tool patterns or something, then I'll kind of look for more into it. But right now, I'm not too worried about it. It's just something that popped up. And that's all. I hope this was helpful. Let me show you. I was going to show you my tool holder while we're still filming. I pulled everything out, but this is like, I have my go-to drawer right here with my like essentials. So usually my pen and Sharpie are right in here. And then I even have, let's see, I've pulled it all out now, but this is where my other notepad and my sticky notes would go. But I've been using this guy a lot more. And then this This is about $150. I use this all the time. And while we're here, let's go end mill organization. This is kind of nice. So I've been buying all Haas tooling, and I got these little dividers at Harbor Freight, and I've been trying to keep similar size with similar size. It's going to get crazier as I get more stuff. And then these are the call-it sets. One's metric, one's imperial. And then I've just been buying a lot more additional, like 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, 3/8, that kind of stuff. And when you buy Haas drills, they come in sets of 10. And so that's kind of good and bad. So you have to buy like 10 of them. But they're a real good bang for the buck. And then so I have different taps and the drills for the taps. And that's about it. And this is my tools that I work a lot. I have them on the top of my toolbox. And then I have this if I'm needing some like extra. I have work holding other places, but this is like you always need an extra nut or socket head cap. So I have that there. And that's it. This is my cool little knife fixture that I'm making. This is for op 1. Well, this is for actually would be op 2. I do a different one for op 1. This is for the other side. So that's like a raised kind of like boss, but it's not really. It's like at an angle. It's all weird. This is, let's see, is that 4? This is where I was setting it in the fixture to kind of see how flat it's sitting. But this is one side of it. I did all this on that mill. This is all annealed stainless steel. And then so the other one's in the house right now, but I machined the same pattern on the backside. It came out okay. I'm still working out the details. And then the next step is I need to harden it, then learn how to sharpen it and probably scratch a bunch. These were just aluminum ones when I was figuring out like just the style that I wanted. And Selby Knives gave me a visit. Super awesome guy. Highly recommend checking him out, checking out his Instagram and his knives. He came over here and he kind of gave me like, I don't know, just inspiration. He showed me kind of his process and what he does. And it's just really inspirational because the reason I got this is I wanted to kind of make my own small products like knives. And I really want to do curriculum stuff as well. So I'm kind of doing both. And this machine's great for it because it's really small. It's compact. Knife blades are small. That's it. I'm going to wrap this up. Bye.